So, hello students. So, today we will be discussing about the radioanatomy of the lower limb. So, the first modality that we will be talking about and the chief modality which we will be talking about is the X-rays. So, first of all, the X-rays of the the upper end of femur and the hip joint. So usually the X-ray is done visualizing both the hip bones and both the hip joints. That is called as an X-ray pelvis with both hip joints. Now, and it is done in an antero-posterior configuration. That is, it is an AP view, and these views always tell us the direction of X-rays. So AP view means the X-rays are entering the patient's body from the anterior side and exiting the patient's body from the posterior side. So the source of X-rays is in front of the patient, and the sensor of the X-rays or the photographic film, which is used rarely now. So the sensor of X-rays is immediately behind the patient. So this is a plain X-ray of the pelvis with both hip joints showing the AP view. Right. So what is, first of all, we will talk about the positioning of the patient. Now, since in the anatomical position, the neck of the femur and the head of the femur is directed slightly forwards also, in addition to upwards and medially, it is directed slightly forwards also. And both the trochanters are facing in a posterior direction. The lesser trochanter in a posterior-medial direction, and this greater trochanter is in a posterior-lateral direction. So, lesser trochanter will be more prominent if the femur is rotated slightly laterally in external rotation, whereas greater trochanter is visualized better when uh, the lower limb is rotated slightly medially, so that it does not overlap the neck of the femur. Here you see, if we do external rotation, then it slightly overlaps the neck of the femur. So the normal positioning of the patient's lower limb for visualization of upper end of femur along with the hip joint, that is in a slightly internal rotation. The toes of the patient should be facing pointed upwards but slightly medially also if the patient is lying supine, right? So here you can see, this is labeling the, this is the head of femur, this is the neck, this is the lesser, and this is the greater trochanter. Here in external rotation, greater trochanter is slightly overlapping the neck of the femur, right? So now if we see just one side, now you cannot comment on which side of the patient is this if there is no L or R written here. So if I go back to the initial X-ray, here it is mentioned that this is left side of the patient. Now you know this is the left hip joint, this is the right hip joint, right? So if it is not written there, here in this one you cannot comment that this belongs to which side of the patient. Now coming to what you can see in here. Now this is obviously part of the ilium, this is part of the ischium and the ischial tuberosity, this is part of the pubic bone, this is the superior ramus of pubis, this is the inferior ramus of pubis, and this is the uh, ramus of ischium. So this is the conjoined ischiopubic ramus. What else can you see? The head of the femur you can see its articular surface, you can see the articular surface of the acetabulum as well. You can see the acetabular fossa, you can see the neck of the femur along with its upper border and lower border, you can see the greater trochanter and the lesser trochanter, you can see the upper part of shaft of femur, and you can see these trabecular patterns also, which are present in the cancellous or the spongy bone, and you can see this dense pattern also which is present in the compact bone, right? What else can you see? You can see that the lower border of neck of femur, if we see that it is in continuity with the upper border of this foramen. Which was this foramen? This is the obturator foramen. So this continuity between the upper margin of the obturator foramen and the lower border of the neck of femur, this is called as Shenton's line, and this Shenton's line should be continuous in normal cases. If there is fracture of femur, or if there is fracture of acetabulum, if there is dislocation of head of femur, In any of such cases, the continuity of this line will be broken. So this is Shenton's line. Second is there is a line called as the iliopectineal line, where the medial border of ilium is seen to be continuous with the upper border of the superior ramus of pubis, which is also called as the pectinate line. So this is the iliopectineal line. And then there is another line called as the ilioischial line, which is seen to be in continuity with the medial border of the ischium, which forms in this X-ray, it is forming the lateral margin of the obturator foramen. So this is the ilioischial line. These lines should also be continuous. In any fractures of acetabulum, the continuity of these lines is also broken. Right? Then can you see any other joint in this X-ray? This is obviously the hip joint. This is the symphysis pubis, right? And this lucent zone is the called as the joint space. Here it includes the cartilages also, and the this capillary film of the synovial fluid also, which cannot be seen in the X-rays. Why? Because cartilages do not stop the X-ray, so they are radiolucent, whereas bone stops the X-rays, and hence it is radio opaque. Right. Now, what else can you see? This is obviously continuous with the marrow cavity of the femur. Now, I will just show you a labeled version of this X-ray. That is nothing but you see that this was the ilium, this was the superior pubic ramus, the inferior pubic ramus, this was part of ischium and ischial tuberosity, this was neck, greater trochanter, lesser trochanter, shaft of femur. Another thing that is shown in this thing is the anterior and posterior walls of the acetabulum itself. If we look closely in here, if I zoom into this thing, then you will be able to see there is one shadow is this one, very feeble, and another shadow is this one. These form the anterior and posterior margins of the acetabulum, whereas this forms the roof of the acetabulum, acetabular roof, right? Okay, and a little bit shadow of the ischial spine. This one, ischial spine, is also present, which is directed backwards and medially, right? Okay. Now, what is coxa vera and coxa valga? This is coxa norma, in which the neck shaft angle that ranges from 120 to 135 degrees. Now, if it is more less than 120 degree, it is called as coxa vera, whereas if it is greater than 135 degrees, it is called as coxa valga. Now, I will show you certain X-rays, certain conditions of bones can cause this thing fracture here. Little fracture of the greater trochanter is also visible here. Okay, so this is coxa vera, where the neck shaft angle has decreased, whereas this is coxa valga, in which the neck shaft angle has increased a lot, right? One thing I forgot to tell was this thing, the fovea capitis of the femur. This is that little depression in the head of femur for attachment of the round ligament of head of femur. Okay, coming back to this thing. Now about the ossification of the femur, just revising the upper end of femur, secondary centers, when do they appear? For the head appears in the first year, roughly around the end of first year. For greater trochanter appears in fourth year. For lesser trochanter appears around puberty, 12 to 13 years. And when do they fuse? In the reverse order. The one which appears first, it fuses with the shaft in the end. So which appears in the end, that is the last one to appear, is the first one to fuse. So this was the last one to appear at puberty. It is the first one to fuse with the shaft at 18 years. Then this one for the greater trochanter fuses with the shaft, and finally the secondary center for head of femur fuses with the shaft. Whereas for lower end, the secondary center is present just before birth, and since the lower end of femur is the growing end of femur, this one is the last to fuse. It joins with the this diaphysis in the 18th to 20th year. Now we will see the X-rays. How does the X-ray of a newborn appear? Now this is not the X-ray of actually of a newborn, but of a child towards the end of first year of life, in which we can see that the secondary center for head of femur has appeared. There is no secondary center for greater trochanter, no secondary center for lesser trochanter. Actually, the secondary center for lesser trochanter is not easily visible even if present, because it is very small one and it is overlapped by this part of this lower part of neck of femur. But here you can see the secondary center of head of femur is present. You can see that there is cartilage between the inferior ramus of pubis and the ramus of ischium. So the ischiopubic ramus has not ossified totally. This ossification is completed by 7th to 8th year of life. You can also see this gap between the ilium above and the ischium and the pubis behind. This is actually because of the presence of the triradiate cartilage, which completely ossifies by about 22 to 23 years of life, right? So this was the x-ray of a child taken in the first year of life. Then this is taken between the ages of 3 and 4 years, where you can see the secondary center for greater trochanter has appeared. Ischiopubic ramus has still not ossified completely. The triradiate cartilage has still not ossified. The head, the secondary center for head has enlarged, but there is still the epiphyseal cartilage between the secondary center for head and the upper end of shaft of femur, right? Because the neck ossifies from the shaft. And then this is again, now this is the x-ray of a child taken in about 8th to 9th year of life. Here you can see that the ischiopubic ramus has completely ossified. We can conclusively say that this child is aged more than 7 years. At 1 year this center had appeared, and in the 4th year this center had appeared. In 7th to 8th year of life, this ischiopubic ramus had ossified, but the triradiate cartilage is still present. You can see that ilium is slightly separated from pubis and ischium because the triradiate cartilage is still here. Then coming to the x-rays of the knee region. So we can take the x-ray of knee region either in the AP view, right, in which the x-rays enter the patient's body from the anterior aspect and exit the patient's body from the posterior aspect, where the photographic film or the this sensor of the x-rays is positioned. Now this can be taken either with the patient lying down supine or with the patient standing erect. What is the difference here is that in this case, with the patient standing, the knee joint is loaded and we can see an actual representation of the joint space. Why do we need to see the joint space? I will tell you later on. So this will be a plain x-ray of the knee region showing the AP view, right? Now what bony parts you can see in this thing? This is obviously the lower end of the femur. This is the upper end of the tibia and the upper end of the fibula. Can you see patella in this x-ray? Yes, you can see a slight shadow of the patella because it lies immediately in front of lower end of the femur. You can see these are the margins of the patella. Now can you comment this is the knee region of left side of patient or right side of patient? No, because you do not see any L or R written in this x-ray. You can comment on the side only if you can see that L or R, right? Okay, so coming to a little bit further detail now, since this is fibula, this is the lateral side, so this is the lateral condyle of tibia and this is the lateral condyle of the femur. You see a slight groove in this lateral condyle. This is the groove for origin of the popliteus muscle, right? And the groove for tendon of popliteus muscle, this is that slight groove. And then this is the medial condyle of tibia, so this is the medial condyle of femur, and somewhere here would be the adductor tubercle where there is insertion of the adductor magnus muscle, right? And then we can see again the cortical bone forming the this lateral and medial cortical margins of the lower end of shaft of femur. We can again see the compact bone in the cortices of tibia and fibula, and we can see the trabecular pattern, which is because of the cancellous or the spongy bone within the epiphysis, right? Then the labeled one again, you see this is the lower part of shaft of femur, the shadow of patella, medial and lateral condyles, medial and lateral tibial plateaus, and this is the intercondylar eminence, the non-articular part of superior surface of tibia, which provides attachment for various ligaments like anterior and posterior cruciate ligaments, and also for the anterior and posterior horns of menisci, that is medial and the lateral meniscus. This area, this radiolucent area between the lower end of femur and the upper end of tibia, this is called as the joint space of the knee joint. Normally it should be this much wide. If this joint space is decreased, that might mean early changes of osteoarthritis are happening, which may be due to degradation of the cartilage or articular cartilage, or because of degradation of the menisci, right? We will see. I will show you x-rays of osteoarthritis also. So okay, then there is the lateral view. Now why do we need to do the lateral view? To visualize the patella and the patellofemoral joint much better, because in the AP view we are only seeing a vague shadow of the patella, whereas in the lateral view I will show you a larger x-ray. How is the lateral view done? Either by abducting and slightly flexing the knee joint, and then flexing it to 30 degrees, and then the x-rays are positioned, the source of x-rays positioned above the patient, and the x-rays enter from medial side and exit from the lateral side of the patient. Whereas if in cases of trauma where the patient cannot move his limb laterally, in that case we use a horizontal beam where the x-ray source is positioned lateral to the knee joint, and the x-rays enter horizontally from the lateral aspect, and the photographic film is placed between the two knee joints, so on the medial aspect of the joint being visualized, right? So here the knee joint is not flexed to 30 degrees. Okay, so this is the lateral view. Now in lateral view, you can see, obviously you can see the lower end of shaft with its anterior cortex and posterior cortex. You can see now, because this is a lateral view, the medial and lateral condyles are superimposed on each other. You can differentiate between the medial and lateral condyles in slightly zoomed in views. I will show you how to. Then you see the patella with its anterior surface, with its posterior articular surface, non-articular part of the posterior surface. Then you see the tibial tuberosity, the anterior part of tibia, the superior surface of tibia. Again, the medial and lateral condyles are superimposed on each other. This was the intercondylar eminence, and then you see the upper end of fibula. You can also visualize the styloid process of fibula. Right. Now, in addition to these bony shadows, you can see the shadows of soft tissue as well. Now, you can guess what would this structure be, which is coming from above and it is ending over the base of patella. This is the tendon of quadriceps muscle. Then you can also see there is a slightly radio dense shadow, radio dense compared to these black areas. These are comparatively radiolucent. This shadow is of the ligamentum patelli, right? Then what is this dark shadow? One, this one, another is this one, another is this one, and there is this radio dense shadow also. This one is the suprapatellar bursa, right? Or the cavity of the knee joint communicates with this thing. This is the suprapatellar bursa. Whereas these black shadows, these are the pads of fat. This is the infrapatellar pad of fat, which is also called as Hoffa's fat pad, and these are the anterior and the posterior suprapatellar pads of fat. Right, now I will show you a labeled version of this thing. Right, so patella and the tendon of quadriceps, the patellar tendon or the ligamentum patelli. Then this is the suprapatellar recess or the suprapatellar bursa, which communicates with the cavity of the knee joint. These are the anterior and posterior suprapatellar fats. There is tibia and there is fibula. Yes, notice that fibula is overlapping the posterior part of tibia, again because this is a lateral view, right? Now, if we zoom into this X-ray, we can see there are two overlapping shadows. Now, one of these has to be the lateral condyle and the other one has to be the medial condyle. How will we decide which one is lateral, which one is medial? Now we know that the lateral condyle is smaller than the medial condyle of femur, right? So ideally this should be the medial condyle of femur, but there are other differentiating features also. The lateral condyle of femur bears this notch. The medial condyle also bears a notch, but it is less conspicuous and present on a comparatively more anterior plane. So this is the notch of lateral condyle, and this is its margin, and this is the very smaller notch of the medial condyle. This is its articular margin, and here somewhere here you can see the adductor tubercle also. It is not very prominent in this one for attachment of the sorry, this one, the adductor magnus muscle, right? So, and this here you can see again the base of patella, the posterior articular surface of patella, the non-articular part of posterior surface of patella. You can see the Hoffa's fat pad. You can see a slight shadow of the ligamentum patelli, and you can see the superior aspect of tibia and the intercondylar plateau, intercondylar eminence of the superior surface of tibia. So again, yeah, so this is the medial condyle, this is the lateral condyle bearing the femoral notch of lateral condyle, and here this is the adductor tubercle, this one, this prominence which is continuous with the margin of the medial condyle for attachment of the adductor magnus muscle, right? Okay, then there is something I added this slide called as incel salivati ratio. This is used, this is a ratio between the length of the patellar tendon, which is from the tibial tuberosity to the apex of patella, divided by the length of the patella itself from the base to the apex. However, now this has been modified. The modified incel salivati ratio is the patellar tendon length in is from tibial tuberosity up to the upper end of non-articular part of posterior surface of patella. So this length has slightly increased, whereas the length of patella is measured as the length of articular surface of patella. So the length of patella is slightly decreased. In the incel salivati ratio, normal amount, the normal value of this ratio is 0.8 to 1.2, right? So if the patellar tendon is longer or the patella is situated higher, then that is called as patella alta, whereas if the patellar tendon is short and the patella is located lower, then that is called as patella baja, or BAJA, where the J is silent, patella baja, right? Okay, then there is something called as the sunrise view or the skyline view. Now this is again done for visualizing even in a better way the patella itself. What we do is that we flex the knee of the patient to about 45 degrees with the help of the support of a block beneath the knee, and the x-rays are entering the knee of the patient from this angle, slightly below the horizontal, so that we are looking at the patella from its apex towards its base. That is why we can see that this is the this trochlear part of the femur, this is the lateral condyle of femur, this is the medial condyle of femur, and this is the anterior surface of patella, and this is the posterior articular surface of patella. How do I know this is the lateral condyle? Because the lateral articular surface is larger than the medial articular surface, right? Now if I show you this view, now here you can clearly see the patella, lateral condyle of femur, medial condyle of femur, lateral part of posterior articular surface, medial part of posterior articular surface, anterior non-articular surface, right? So this is the lateral condyle, medial part of patella, lateral part of patella, right? Okay, now have a look at this x-ray, and can you see something additional in addition to the patella, the femur, and the tibia? There is a small bone that you can see in this one. Most of you must have seen it by now. This small thing. In the lateral view you can see it superimposed on which condyle of femur. Now again revising, which one is which condyle of femur? This is the medial condyle of femur, and this is the lateral condyle with its notch, and somewhere here would be the adductor tubercle, not very clearly present in this one, but this is a sesamoid bone. Can you see it in the anterior posterior view? Yes, it is seen here. So which is the sesamoid bone in the origin of lateral head of gastrocnemius? That is the fabella. So this is the fabella that you can see, right? So this is fabella again that you can see in this x-ray, a sesamoid bone. Now, what can you see in this X-ray? If you look at the shadow of patella, what difference can you see from a normal one? You can see that this is the margin of patella. You can see that this end appears to be broken off, but this is not broken away from patella. This is actually something called as bipartite patella, in which the superior lateral part has not fused with the rest of the patella, right? So this should not be confused with the fracture of patella. The fracture always has very jagged edges, whereas this has very smooth sclerosed margins. So this is a bipartite patella. There can be a tripartite patella also, that is very rare. Okay, now what do you see in this thing? Now if you look at patella, the shadow of patella, you can see there is a vertical gap of radiolucency between this lateral and the medial part. Now this could be a fracture, or this could be a bipartite patella also. We cannot see it very clearly. In a lateral view also, again, because the X-ray are passing in this direction, we are not seeing this fracture line or this radiolucency at all. Now what do we do to differentiate what is this? We do the skyline view. So in the skyline view, what are you going to see? Hydrops just means the swelling of soft tissue. In the skyline view, you will be able to see that there is a gap, this radiolucency, and the edges of the bone are quite jagged. So this is a fracture of patella, a vertical fracture of patella, which was not very conspicuously seen in AP view, not seen at all in the lateral view. So now you know the importance of the skyline view, right? So this is a patella fracture. Spellings are wrong. This is patella fracture. Okay, right. Then now what is this? Now compared to our earlier AP views, now इसमें look at the joint space. See how wide it is. Whereas look at the joint space in these ones, decreased, almost obliterated. So these are osteoarthritic knees, in which you can see the joint space is decreased or almost absent. You can see formation of these bony prominences projecting beyond the tibial condyles. These are called as osteophytes or reactive bone formation, with the body is trying to increase the articular surface. And then there are, subchondral cysts are present. There may be subchondral sclerosis may be present. These will all be told to you in your final year in radio diagnosis. I'm just showing you how osteoarthritic knees look like. There is decrease in joint space, there is osteophyte formation, subchondral sclerosis, and cysts are also formed because of various reasons. So these are the x-rays of osteoarthritic knees. Coming to the ossification of the lower end of femur, we know that when do the this secondary centers appear? Lower end of femur appears at birth. The upper end of tibia appears sometimes just before birth, or just after birth it does appear, whereas upper end of fibula appears in third to fourth year, and patella starts ossifying in the third year in female child, and in the fourth to fifth year in the male child. What is the age of fusion? Since this is the growing end, this will also fuse very late, roughly by 17 to 19 years, depending upon whether it is a female or a male subject. And tibia and fibula as well, closure is 16 to 17 years in females, 18 to 19 in males and upper end of fibula as well. Fibula does not follow the law of ossification. Ideally, if this center is the last to fuse, this should have been the first to appear. But the first to appear is the secondary center for lower end. Then the secondary center for this end appears. Then this fuses, and in the end, this fuses. Fibula does not follow the law of ossification. Now, looking at the X-rays of knee joint. Now, this is the X-ray of the knee joint of a newborn child, where you can see this very small secondary center for the lower end of femur has just appeared, and you do not see the secondary centers for upper end of tibia or fibula. So, this is the X-ray of knee joint of a newborn, and this carries a medico-legal importance. By doing the X-ray of the dead body of a child, of a child, you can, if you can visualize this secondary center, then you know that this child was at least 9 months of gestational age, right? Okay. Then, if we do the X-ray of the knee joint, or X-ray of the knee region, not knee joint, of the knee region, in the first year of life, you will see the secondary center for upper end of tibia has also appeared, and then in roughly in the fourth year of life, the upper end of fibula, secondary center for upper end of fibula also appears. Look, with age, the secondary center of Pele at birth, the secondary center for lower end of femur was this small. Then it has increased in size, further increased in size, but you can see this radiolucency between the lower end of the shaft and the secondary center for lower end. This is the epiphyseal cartilage, because cartilages are radiolucent, they do not appear on X-rays. And you can see the upper end of tibia also has not fused with the upper end of shaft. The secondary center of tibia has not fused with upper end of the shaft, and this is the secondary center for upper end of fibula. So this is of a newborn child, this is of a child in the first year of life, this is of a child in the third to fourth year of life. Okay, then coming to the X-rays of ankle. So we can either do simply an AP view, in which we keep the ankle at 90 degree to the leg. The dorsum of ankle is kept at 90 degrees to the front of leg, and the X-rays enter 90 degrees to the front of leg in this direction. Uh, in this view, in this normal AP view of the ankle, the lateral malleolus is very close to the talus, right? So to visualize the ankle joint very clearly, what we do is we do medial rotation or slight inversion of the foot. This is called as the mortise view or the mortise image. Mortise is what? This this shape which lodges the upper end of the talus, the trochlea of the talus is lodged inside this concave mortise. So this is the mortise view. Here you can see that the lateral malleolus is not overlapping the talus at all. So slightly by doing medial rotation or inversion by 15 to 20 degrees. Now in this view, what you can see is the lower end of tibia with the medial malleolus and the inferior articular surface of tibia. You can see the lower end of fibula with the lateral malleolus. You can see the superior articular surface of the talus, lateral articular surface, medial articular surface of the talus. So, which is the cavity of the ankle joint or the talocrural joint, that is this one. So the ankle joint is found between the superior surface of talus, lateral articular surface of talus, and medial articular surface of talus. These are on one side, whereas it is also found between inferior articular surface of tibia, lateral surface of the medial malleolus, and medial surface of the lateral malleolus. So this is the joint cavity of the ankle joint. There is another joint placed below the talus, that is called as the subtalar joint. What movements happen at the ankle joint? They are the dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, whereas at the subtalar joint, what movements are happening? They are the inversion and eversion. We will come to that later on, right? So this is the labeled view. This is the fibula and the lateral malleolus, tibia and the medial malleolus. Upper ankle joint or the ankle joint proper or the talocrural joint, that one. Subtalar joint is this one, because here the talus and the calcaneus are overlapped, because this is an AP view, but you can see the joint cavity of the subtalar talar joint very clearly here, right? So right now this is a lateral view of the ankle region. Here you can see the anterior-posteriorly which one is wider, that is the tibia. This is the posterior cortex of tibia, anterior cortex of tibia. This is the inferior articular surface of tibia. Then this is the anterior cortex of fibula, posterior cortex of fibula. If you look clearly, if I zoom in a bit, you can see the continuity. This is the fibula, right? And you can see the medial malleolus as well. Medial malleolus, the lower edge of the medial malleolus, it ends slightly above the lateral malleolus. If we see in the lateral view, you can see lateral malleolus, the apex of lateral malleolus extends quite below as compared to the apex or the lowest end of the medial malleolus. So this was the lateral malleolus, whereas this one is the medial malleolus. Now you can see the superior articular surface of the talus. This is the anterior end of the talus, right? This shadow, ये तुम लोग guess लगाओ क्या है. I will tell you later on. Now talus articulates anteriorly with which bone? This is the navicular bone. So this is the talonavicular joint. Navicular articulates anteriorly with which bone? The cuneiform bones. Okay, here in this area, the medial, intermediate, and the lateral cuneiforms as well as the cuboid bone, they are all overlapped in this area. So, but you can see very clearly the joint cavity between the navicular and the cuneiform bone, right? And then this is obviously which bone? This is the calcaneum. Here you can see the joint cavity of the talocalcaneal joint or the subtalar joint, right? This bony prominence is the sustentaculum tali, right? Okay. And calcaneum, you can see the shadow of calcaneum very clearly, anterior end of calcaneum. This is anterior end of calcaneum. So you can see this is the margin of, this should be which bone which articulates anteriorly with calcaneum? The cuboid bone. So calcaneo-cuboid joint, the cavity you can see very clearly here. If I zoom in a bit, so this is the cavity of the calcaneo-cuboid joint. Right now we see a labeled this view of this x-ray. So tibia, fibula, you can see the lateral malleolus here. Then you can see the subtalar joint between the talus and the upper surface of the calcaneum. You can see the calcaneo-cuboid joint. You can see the talonavicular joint. This is the navicular. Somewhat here was the cuboid, and this is the fifth metatarsal, not the first one, fifth metatarsal, because that articulates with the cuboid anteriorly, right? Okay. So another thing that is labeled here is malleolus tertius. We have lateral malleolus, we have medial malleolus. The posterior part of tibia is sometimes referred to as the malleolus tertius by some physicians and radiologists. And the fat pad lying in front of the Achilles tendon. Here you can see a soft tissue shadow of the tendo-Achilles or the tendocalcaneum inserting on the middle one third of posterior surface of calcaneum. This dark shadow or fat pad is called as the Kager's fat pad, right? And this is the fibrofatty tissue, dense fibrofatty tissue forming the prominence of your heel, right? Then we come to the x-rays of the foot. They are three views are done normally for the foot. One is the dorso-plantar view, in which the the x-rays enter the foot from its dorsal aspect, exit from the plantar aspect, and the plantar aspect is kept on the x-ray sensor or the photographic film. And then we have oblique view, in which the leg is adducted slightly so that the x-rays are entering the foot at a slightly oblique view. Here the medial border of foot is touching the ground, but the lateral border is lifted off from the ground. So this is the dorso-plantar view and this is the oblique view. Now you should be able to identify the various bones in both these views. Now we know that obviously these are the phalanges. The toes, great toe has two phalanges, the lateral four toes have three phalanges. So we know this is the first metatarsal, these are the second, third, fourth, and fifth metatarsals. Now the first three metatarsals they articulate proximally with respectively with medial cuneiform, intermediate and lateral cuneiform. Now we see that the intermediate and lateral cuneiforms are quite overlapping because they are forming the transverse arch, right? And then the three cuneiform bones they proximally articulate with. So this should be the navicular bone, and navicular articulates proximally with, this should be the anterior end of the talus. We also know that the fourth and the fifth metatarsals articulate proximally with the cuboid bone. So this is the shadow of the cuboid, and the cuboid articulates proximally with the calcaneum. So this is anterior end of calcaneum, but the talus and calcaneum are quite superimposed on each other. You can also see the shadows of lower end of tibia and the lower end of fibula because they are also coming in the path of the x-rays. Now in this oblique view, you can see the shadow of the cuboid very clearly. The lateral cuneiform, here the medial and intermediate are cuneiforms are superimposed on each other. So to visualize the cuboid and the calcaneum in a better way, we do the oblique view. Here you can also see the uh, fourth and the fifth metatarsals. This is the tuberosity of the fifth metatarsal bone. This is the part that was seen here. This is the fifth part of the fifth metatarsal. This is that part of the fifth metatarsal. ये वाला, where the peroneus brevis comes and attaches, right? So here you can see this is the calcaneocuboid joint. You can see the talonavicular joint. You can see the naviculo-cuneiform joints. And here slightly you can see the cavity of the subtalar joint as well between the superior surface of calcaneum and the inferior aspect of talus also, right? And now, because it is written here RT meaning right, we know that these are X-rays of the right foot. Here nothing is mentioned. We cannot comment this is X-ray of the left or the right ankle region. Here we cannot comment if this is X-ray of left or right ankle region. In these one also we cannot comment. So we need this thing written in the X-ray to comment on this belongs to which side of the patient. Now have a closer look in these X-rays. What are these small radio opacities? These are the sesamoid bones present in the uh, insertion of flexor uh, hallucis brevis, and this is a small sesamoid tendon present in the insertion of flexor digiti minimi brevis, right? In the oblique view also these two are slightly superimposed on each other, and this one is also visible, right? But these are the sesamoid bones. Some other small accessory bony ossicles can also be present in relation to the bones of the foot. I will share them. So this is again slightly better quality views. So this is the dorsoplantar view, this is the oblique view. Now this dx here again means the right side, dx means dextro. So this is the x-ray of the right foot. Here also this R has been slightly cut off. This is an oblique view of the right foot. So here again you can visualize easily. Let me just move. These are the two phalanges of the great toe. Then sorry, these are the phalanges of the lateral four toes. Then we have the, this is the first metatarsal and the two sesamoid bones in the insertion of flexor hallucis brevis. Then we have the second, third, and fourth metatarsals. You can see their bases are quite overlapping each other, all because they are participating in the formation of the transverse arch, which is not a horizontally flat structure, but it is arched, right? Then we can see that these are the, this is the medial cuneiform bone, we can see very clearly, but the intermediate and lateral cuneiforms are quite superimposed over the cuboid bone. This one is the navicular, this is the shadow of the anterior end of talus, and this is the shadow of anterior end of calcaneum. Here the shadows of talus and calcaneum are superimposed on each other. And in the oblique view, you can see the cuboid very clearly, you can see the calcaneum very clearly, the anterior aspect as well as the inferior aspect of calcaneum. So this is the calcaneocuboid joint, this is the cuboideo-metatarsal joint between the anterior aspect of cuboid and fourth and fifth metatarsals. This is the talonavicular joint, this is the navicular bone, this is the naviculo-cuneiform joints between the anterior aspect of navicular and the this medial, intermediate and lateral cuneiforms, which are quite superimposed in this oblique view. These are the metatarsals. Here you can see that this is a comparatively younger patient where the base of the first metatarsal and the heads of the second, third, fourth, fifth metatarsals and the bases of the phalanges, the secondary centers, have not yet fused. And we have for the fifth metatarsal, we have another secondary center. This is called as the apophysis. You have to differentiate. It is easy to differentiate whether it is an apophysis of fifth metatarsal or it is a fracture. The apophysis, the radiolucency between the apophysis and the shaft of metatarsal lies longitudinally, whereas if this was a fracture, the fracture line usually lies transversely, right? Okay, so then this is a lateral view again of the right foot, dx is written. So here you can see this is the cavity of the ankle joint, this is the cavity of the subtalar joint, this is the opacity of sustentaculum tali. You can see the trabecular pattern present in the calcaneum. One is this pattern, one is this pattern, and one is this pattern. There is something called as the neutral triangle here formed. Then this is which bone, obviously, because it is lying in front of talus. This is the navicular. Navicular articulates anteriorly with the cuneiforms. Here it is difficult to differentiate which is the cuneo-metatarsal joint, which is cuboideo-metatarsal joint, because they are all superimposed on each other. But we can see the cuboid bone. This is the calcaneo-cuboid joint. This is the anterior end of calcaneum. This is somewhere here is the cuboid, and this is definitely the tuberosity of the fifth metatarsal, right? So you can see that the fifth metatarsal is lying on a comparatively posterior plane as compared to somewhere here would be lying the base of the first metatarsal. Okay, so now these are the various accessory bony ossicles which might be present in the foot, in addition to those sesamoid bones of in the insertion of flexor hallucis brevis and flexor digiti minimi brevis. So os trigonum might be asked, it is present behind the talus. Then there might be this os subtibial, which might be present in lower end of medial malleolus, os subfibulare in the lower end of lateral malleolus, and os peroneum may be present in the tendon of peroneus longus muscle and some other bony ossicles as well. Then now we have studied x-rays. These were all plain x-rays. These were not using any contrast medium. Angiography is done to visualize the blood vessels. Angiography of lower limb, obviously, to visualize the blood vessels of lower limb. Now this uses a contrast medium. If I play this video, this is a fluoroscopic video. You can see shadow of tibia and fibula. Now here we inject the radio opaque medium inside an artery, and we can see the various course of artery and then the capillaries, and then it will be taken up by the veins, right? So again, playing it again, this was the wire going in the artery. So you can see any filling defects within the artery. These angiographic studies are usually done for peripheral vascular disease, in which the peripheral arteries might develop obstructions so that the blood flow to the distal parts of the limbs is affected. So for diagnosis of one of the modalities, one of the uh, reasons for doing these angiographic studies are for uh, peripheral vascular diseases, right? So this angiography can be done with CT scan also. Then it is called as CT angiography. Here it can be and the shadows of all the other soft tissues can be removed from the CT scan digitally. Then that is called as digital subtraction angiography, or DSA, in which you can visualize the entire course of the artery. Here you can see this was the popliteal artery, this is the anterior tibial artery, this is the posterior tibial artery, and this thing is the peroneal artery, right? And in the upper part, you might be able to visualize this is the femoral artery or the superficial femoral artery. This is the common femoral artery, this is the superficial femoral artery, and this is the deep femoral artery or the profunda femoris artery, right? Okay. Then the third thing is CT, MRI, and ultrasonography. The most important one in this case is MRI. Most commonly, it is done for visualization of the knee joints. Now, MRI is very good for visualizing soft tissues, whereas CT scan is comparatively better for visualizing hard tissues, that is bone. And ultrasonography we have already discussed for locating the sites of perforators. In case of varicose veins, it can be used. Doppler ultrasound can be used to locate various arteries. Venesection, if we want to do and we want to locate the great saphenous vein in case of patient with a hypovolemic shock, that can be done. Ultrasound helps us to localize tendons as well as nerves and vessels, neurovascular structures with high precision. What is the use of MRI? Let me just change my view. And yes, so now this is now in MRI as well as CT scan, what we do is we visualize the body as if we have done sections of the body, either in the coronal plane or in the sagittal plane or in the transverse plane. Now this is a sagittal view. So if I am moving from uh, let me see, from I think medial to the lateral side. Now if I move the plane of section from medial to lateral side, we will slightly start seeing these are the various muscles. This should be the vastus medialis. This should be the medial muscles of back of thigh. This should include the adductor muscles, plus it should also include the semimembranosus tendinosus. We will come to see which one, and this should be the beginning of the medial epicondyle and the medial condyle of femur, right? And then below that we just start seeing the beginning of the medial condyle of tibia, right? And then we start seeing this is the anterior part and posterior part of the meniscus, the medial meniscus. If I again move the view back towards the medial aspect, we will see here the continuity. This is the medial most part of the medial meniscus, right? Then this is the anterior and posterior part of medial meniscus. What I am showing this for you here, you will be able to see that now the medial condyle of femur is finishing. We are almost reaching the lateral surface of the medial condyle, and medial condyle के lateral surface के anterior part पे कौन सा ligament attached होता है, that is the posterior cruciate ligament. So we will start seeing the appearance of the posterior cruciate ligament somewhere here, right? So this is the attachment, upper attachment of posterior cruciate ligament. It is going down, and here we can completely see that the posterior cruciate ligament is intact. It is coming from lateral surface of medial condyle of femur, and it is inserting posterior most on the superior surface of tibia, intercondylar areas, most posterior part. The posterior cruciate ligament is attaching there. Now again, if I move the plane of section backwards towards the medial side, right? So this was the medial condyle of femur. Now if I start moving it towards the lateral side, this is the lateral surface of the medial condyle, posterior cruciate ligament is attached. Now this is somewhat the intercondylar part of the femur. Then keep moving laterally. Now we will reach the medial surface of lateral condyle of femur, and what is attached on its posterior superior part, that is the anterior cruciate ligament. Here you can see the anterior cruciate ligament is going downwards and forwards and slightly medially also. It that medial to lateral direction is not visible here, but the anterior posterior direction is visible. So this is the anterior cruciate ligament. Okay. This is not going to be asked from you from exam, but you are going to encounter this in your radio and ortho postings later on. Then you should know, how to visualize. You can also see what should be this part. You guys should be knowing this is the bony part lying in front of lower end of femur. So this is patella, and this hypo intense. Now, just like in X-rays, we use the term radiolucent and radio opaque. In case of MRI, we use the term hypo intense and hyper intense. So this hypo intense shadow, not shadow, the hypo intense structure seen here coming from above and inserting into base of patella. This is the tendon of quadriceps femoris, and this hypotenuse structure going from apex of patella and into the tibial tuberosity. This is the ligamentum patelli, whereas this is the infrapatellar pad of fat, or Hoffa's pad, fat pad. This is the suprapatellar anterior and posterior fat pads. Here you can see the cartilage lining the lower end of femur, and right, so we will be able to see the lateral meniscus also. This is the anterior horn and the posterior horn, and here we will be able to see that lateral meniscus will come in continuity just deep to the lateral collateral ligament. So this was the sagittal section. In coronal section also, now if I move it totally anteriorly, right, now if I am doing a coronal section, we are starting from the anterior most aspect of knee joint. Now we are able to see that this is the patella, right? Then as we move the section of plane backwards, we will be able to see that this hypointense structure, this was the tendon of quadriceps, and this shadow, this structure which was starting from the apex of patella, and as we move the plane of section posteriorly, this thing is also going downwards, because the ligamentum patelli, in addition to going downwards, it goes backwards also. That is why in the coronal section we won't be able to see it as a continuous structure, but as a oblique section of the ligamentum patelli going downwards, and it will end at the tibial tuberosity. We will see this is the patellar ligament, it will end at the tibial tuberosity. Here we see a coronal section of the lower end of femur. We have started to see. Now the femur is completely, now you see that this patellar ligament has ended at tibial tuberosity. Right, now you can clearly see this is the one of the condyles of femur, this is the other condyle, and again the corresponding condyles of tibia, the intercondylar ligaments. Now how do we know which one is the medial condyle, which one is the lateral condyle? The medial condyle, it projects farther away from the line of shaft of femur, whereas the lateral condyle is more in line with the shaft. So this is the lateral aspect, this is the medial aspect. We will see that fibula will be visualized here if when I move the plane of section further posteriorly. But before that, what we will be able to see is the anterior cruciate ligament coming from the this medial surface of lateral femoral condyle and going downwards to reach the tibia. If I keep moving the plane of section backwards, now it won't be visualized as a continuous structure because these are coronal sections, right? And because we are moving from anterior to posterior, the lowest part of anterior cruciate ligament, which is the most anterior part of it also, that will be visualized first, and as I move the plane of section backwards, we will be able to see the anterior cruciate ligament going upwards and backwards, right? So just, yeah, ACL should start from somewhere here, it is going upwards, and this is the ACL, whereas the PCL has started from anterior part of medial uh, surface of the, sorry, lateral surface of medial condyle, and it goes downwards and backwards to insert here. You need not remember this thing, I just shown you the MRI, that how structures are visualized, how it helps us see structures in much greater detail than the two-dimensional images of X-rays. Yeah, so What you should know for your level, you should be able to identify the X-ray, which region of the body is visualized in the X-ray, which bones are present in that X-ray, which view is that, whether it is the anterior-posterior view or the lateral view or the dorsoplantar or the oblique view, and you should be able to, identify the joint spaces, delineate the joint spaces, right? All right, that's all. So, thank you.